You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings.
Welcome back into the channel. Another DD Fantasy Football mock draft. We are going to be talking free agency impact on the 2025 rookie class. I'm with Brandon. I'm with Mitch. Follow those guys. You can follow the Twitter handle Destination Devi. Brandon runs it, and then you can find Mitch at DynoMC. Guys, we're talking post-free agency rookie mock. We haven't put a mock out since free agency ended, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. We are going to draft 4 rounds. We're going to use a 12-team start 11 super flex format, 1.5 tight end premium. Nothing else fancy. We're not going 175. We're not going 2. We're keeping it pretty vanilla other than I think the start 11. But we're going to incorporate veterans that changed teams during free agency. So you can incorporate those players in wherever they fit in the class, and they will get drafted at a spot within the rookie draft. So effectively, it'll be a 3-round rookie draft probably with some veterans mixed in, so we can talk about where those veterans would probably slide in, approximate trade value, or maybe leverage at those positions relative to the rookie class. So Brandon, I'll start with you. How do you kind of gauge the impact of the free agency class? It was kind of weak. Some of the better players didn't end up changing teams. That we did get some players. We've talked about it on Manic and Chill. I know John and Mitch have talked about it. A lot of times it just gives you the opportunity to move players differently than you couldn't before because now they're on a different team because they're in the news. How do you kind of see the free agency class this year impacting the overall landscape in the rookie class?
I don't think it affects too much of what we think about the 2025 class, right? We're pretty strong in the running back class, and the only ones that are on our list is Najee Harris and Javonte Williams. So it's not like the running back class got lost a bunch of spots, right? I think that's really what I take away from the skill positions looking at the list that we have, is that there's not a ton of guys that like, oh, well, this guy went here, so therefore, once we get these 2 spots covered up, these guys are just in certain opportunities. Like there's still a lot of good opportunities that are going to be out there. Evan Ingram obviously signing with Denver. That was a big one for the tight end market, but there's still plenty of opportunities and plenty of spots where Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, Terrence Ferguson, all these guys that we're very high on will still have opportunities to land and make impact in 2025.
Yeah, Mitch, it's almost like the NFL said this is a good running back class with the rookies and had 0 value in the free agent class. Now, it wasn't great, but what are your thoughts on kind of impacts on how this class might have changed your rookie draft approach or your value of the picks a little bit?
Hasn't really changed it a lot. There's probably 15 to 16 prospects that I really, really love pre-draft. All this stuff can change in 5 weeks when the NFL draft starts. We'll get the landing spots. But right now, there's 15 to 16 guys that I just love, that I'm 100% happy drafting today in a startup, today in this mock draft, feel good with their value. But the guys after that, that's when, I'm kind of looking at these veterans, how these veterans fit in compared to, let's say, like a Trey Harris or a guy like that. Like, am I willing to move out of a mid-second pick to attack this veteran instead that I believe the production's going to be there? Or do I believe in the rookie hype? But I'm saying, like, this first round, I really love it in this draft, and the free agency hasn't changed it at all. I think we have some great landing spots still, some teams that have huge needs for these rookies. So I'm all about this draft still.
Yeah, I think for me, you guys both kind of nailed the points. It didn't have a huge impact. Obviously, the receivers were very underwhelming in free agency, other than a few veterans that moved teams. Running backs, we kind of knew that because it wasn't a great running back class. Plus, there's some good running backs still sitting out there that have been productive before. J.K. Dobbins comes to mind, and people are probably looking at him like, what do I do with him? And that's fair because you probably can't do anything with him if he's on your roster. But an NFL team's probably looking at him like, we'll bring him in, but we have no incentive to do it at a price that he probably would sign for. And so he's probably like, I'm just going to wait and see what depth chart opens up after the draft, and then I'll contact those teams because he's not getting paid a ton. A lot of these guys are getting 1-year deals, $3 million, $4 million. Like, it's a 1-year mercenary, and it doesn't even protect them from getting any opportunity, right? Some of these guys got signed to places that teams are still likely to take a draft or a running back in this draft because it's such a strong class. So it's going to be interesting how it shakes out. I think things will kind of find their level after the draft, but there's going to be some guys that kind of just sit there and linger, and you wonder, what do I do with them? That's the value of guys like Rico Dowdle or Javonte Williams finding homes, is someone may trade for them or value them in a trade, to where before it would have been, I don't know what to do with these guys. So we'll get into it. This is going to be simple. We'll just talk through these picks. We'll do a rookie draft, but at any point you can draft a veteran that changed teams in free agency, and we can talk through maybe how the positions are impacted based on where the rookies are tiered. So I'll start it off. I think it's pretty simple. Still Ashton Denty. I think he's gone first in every mock. He's going to go first here. Very easy pick. Nothing more needs to be said. I think because we're not drafting based on any landing spots or draft capital, let's focus on talking through what we think about these players now relative to their draft capital and kind of the opportunity we expect them to get, because we're not going to have that. We don't have teams. We don't have draft capital to go off of. But let's talk through like the why. If you have a player that you're picking, what are your expectations as to where they go? So we'll go in order. Brandon, you're up at 102. What you doing?
I'm going to go quarterback. I'm going to stay true to pretty much every mock that I've been on. I'm going to stick quarterback here, 12 by 11. I'm going to go Cam Ward. I think the league is telling us that he's going to be the number one pick. So that's whether that's Tennessee, whether that's New York, he's going to have he's going to have opportunity. I feel pretty safe in taking him here at 102. Yeah, I'm going to take Cam Ward here. I'm going to probably gift Mitch his RB2, and he's really happy down there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mitch is feeling real good at that 103. I mean, honestly, Mitch, couple people have done roster reviews with Shane and I, and they've had the 103, and they're going, man, how do I get another? They're trying to get, one of the two elite running backs. Genty's untouchable to trade to. So feels like this is a gift you get in Hampton at 103, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to take Hampton here. I said on Trending Fantasy that dropped Thursday morning on this feed that for me, there's there's a tier of Ashton Genty, and then there's the own tier of Omarion Hampton. To me, it's just Omarion Hampton can't quite get up to Genty's tier because of how everybody values him. But at the same time, it's hard for me I understand the Cam Ward take, super flex quarterback. I completely get it. But value wise, it's just hard for me to put anybody else above Hampton because I think the love everybody's going to have for him after the first round of the NFL draft.
Mitch, I know we're not going there yet, and maybe this is better asked when we talk about tight ends, but how does this premium make you change your tiers a little bit? I heard you mention something about, if the tight end premium is a certain premium or more, that you're maybe a little more liberal with the tiers, but here, like, does it make you be willing to kind of say, we haven't taken Evan Ingram yet, but does it make you kind of say, I'm willing to live with a guy like that if he's going to fall because he's old and crusty and I don't really care and I don't care as much about the premium? I've been very much, you might hit on Loveland or Tyler Warren, but man, if you don't, it's a big opportunity cost to use a 104, 105 on a tight end when the outcome is he better be top 6 or better as a rookie. Otherwise, you're immediately going, man, I could have just had Hunter Henry as my starter and probably gotten the same thing. How do you view the tiers when it's only 1.5?
Yeah, that's the problem when it's so I heard about this a long time ago. Listen back to Scott Fish and Ryan McDowell talk about different premiums with tight ends. And they broke it down very easily, 5 or 6 years ago. This kind of premium helps the super elite tight ends. They help the ball hawk guys that are going to get 100 to 125 targets a year. And that's who it helps. This premium doesn't help the guys that are going to get 4 or 5 targets a game. It's just not giving enough to their bottom line to boost them up. So, normally I would have Colston, Loveland, and Tyler Warren, right here at the 104 and the 105, right around that range. I can't do that in this kind of premium because if you miss on that and all of a sudden Tet goes out and he's a top 12 wide receiver, you can never make up that value with that kind of tight end.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of times what people are chasing is the elite tight end outcome, but then they don't realize how hard that is to actually get. And even when you get it in a 1.5, because everybody after, tight end 5, 6 is pretty much the same impact from a WAR standpoint. Like you can go to ddfantasyfootball.com, look at the WAR for a 1.5 tight end premium league. As soon as you get past like tight end 5, 6, you don't even want to flex those types of tight ends. You'd rather have a receiver or a running back that's getting 15 opportunities. You'd rather just flex those guys. So, like, the benefit more of hitting on a Loveland or Warren is you've probably squeezed out a tight end. It makes it really hard to replicate if you end up with a top 5, top 6 guy. But if you don't hit on that, like, no one's super interested in even guys like Kyle Pitts or Dalton Kincaid or Mark Andrews. Like, those are just afterthoughts at this point. And you telling me both Loveland and Warren are guaranteed to be better than those 3 guys? That's tough. That's tough. So, all right, I'm up at the 104. I think for me, the way I'm viewing it right now is, depending on my needs, there could be a tier break. But if I don't have any needs, then I'm really flexible with these picks. I really don't see the difference between 103 and probably 105. I'm assuming that there's going to be 2 more running backs besides Hampton and Genty that get enough steam or draft capital or landing spot or some combo of the 3 where I'm totally fine just being the second or third pick of that group. So I'll just go Quinshawn Judkins. I think you could go Travion Henderson. I think you could go with another quarterback if you needed one. You could even go for a tight end if you really wanted to take the gamble that you get an elite tight end out of whoever it is, whether it's Warren or whether it's Loveland. But I'll just go with Judkins here. But I think it's kind of the start or the middle of a tier because the next pick really doesn't have any different value. So what do you think, Brandon? You think that's kind of true? Like, is it, would you really want to trade up to 104 here for any reason?
No. I mean, it's at this point, the running backs that are in this tier are pretty much based on what somebody really prefers. But I'm not taking running back. I'm actually going to take wide receiver. I'm going to go Tet. Okay. I think the Tet discourse on social media this week has been quite a sore spot for some folks. I think he's very good. I don't necessarily think he's an elite wide receiver 1. I don't think anybody, even though he's the wide receiver 1 in the class, he's not necessarily an elite wide receiver 1. Ray's done a breakdown over on his YouTube page, comparing him closer to T. Higgins, which is perfectly fine for me. He's going to get the requisite draft capital. He's going to get the requisite opportunity. I feel comfortable with securing this wide receiver here, knowing later on, if I have a draft pick in the back end of the first round, I'm still probably going to get a running back that I would prefer, as opposed to taking Caleb Jackson or Travion Henderson here and then having to make the decision between an Emeka Ibuka or Trey Harris.
Brandon hit the old Caleb Jackson again. Only the first time, Brandon. Only the first time. But no, I get you. I mean, Mitch, do you think that Tet's value is going to have a pretty wide range in depending on how wide receivers valued in your league? Because it's possible that there's only 2 receivers that really are in spots where people are like, I really want to get that receiver because they're young, they have a good quarterback, they have a good offense, whatever it is. I know some people are like, there's no way I would let Tet fall that far. And then other leagues are like, man, running backs are too valuable and I'll just let him fall to the 106, 107, 108. What do you think?
It's hard because everything you read from the NFL side of things right now is it looks like if you include Travis Hunter as a wide receiver, there might be 3 total wide receivers drafted in the first round. I can't remember the last time that actually happened. Like, we're normally seeing multiple, or at this point, we're seeing multiple talked about. Right now, it's not even getting talked about that Luther Burden, a guy that I love. He's a second round guy for everybody right now. So no, I definitely think. So I will say this on McMillan. Landing spot is so important to him. Like, let's say the Ravens go out and draft him in the first. Everyone's going to hate him. If for whatever reason the Patriots trade back and all of a sudden he goes to the Patriots and everyone's going to fall in love with him. I just think that landing spot is going to be so important for him, that more so than even for like a guy like Matthew Golden. You could see Matthew Golden going to a team like the Ravens and people being able to kind of talk themselves into it because he was kind of the unknown guy and now he's more known. But everyone has such prospect fatigue on Tet McMillan now that if he doesn't get a really good landing spot, I could see him dropping pretty hard in rookie drafts.
Yeah, I mean, the average over the last 5 years has been 5.6 receivers in the first round. We've had some years where there's been 6, with 5, and we're just not going to get there, even with Travis Hunter counting. The odds that, I mean, what's the over-under, Brandon? Isn't it like 3.5? And we were talking in the Discord, like, probably take the under at this point. I mean, it's no more than 4. You know,
Yeah,
like
I mean,
if it was
it's
5, then something really changed. But I'm guessing it's probably 4 at most, and that's including Hunter.
I'd be shocked if the line. I mean, I'd imagine the line's probably 4.5 with like some heavy juice to the under, right? Like a minus 150, minus 160, where it's kind of like it's 60% likely that there's only 4. Obviously, we could probably get maybe a fifth one in there, if a team, but with Devontae Adams moving, with Cooper Kupp moving to locations where it's like, well, the Rams at 26 and now Seattle at 18, they're probably not realistically landing spots maybe for a wide receiver now. Like you just start to kind of like they can wait till round 2, they can wait till round 3 to push on one of those. So I think that's kind of where teams are going to look at. So yeah, I think there's probably a solid 4.
Yeah. Mitch, you're up at the 106. What you doing?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Caleb Johnson here. I mean, if we're gonna take people that X hates, I might as well go with Caleb, right? I mean, we took Tet, X hates him. Everyone hates Caleb for whatever reason, because for some reason having a good offensive line is a bad thing now. That's one of the takes that I've seen in multiple places that does not make sense to me. It's like hating an Alabama back for like the last 6 years because they play behind a good offensive line. Like it doesn't make sense to me. I think he's definitely more scheme specific than what the other guys are. He's definitely gap scheme would be absolutely fantastic for him. But dude's awesome. I said going into this whole rookie draft session that he was extremely close to Marion Hampton. He hasn't done anything to me that pushes me off of that. I think he's the third best back in this class. I'm willing to stay on that for right now.
So we're assuming that the top 5 running backs, at least for me, and maybe there's a 6th that sneaks into day 2. Maybe there's a 7th. Maybe an 8th if I can squint. But I don't think we're going to see a ton of running backs go in round 3. I just don't. I think there'll be a few, but this thought of, that guy's going to go day 2, day 2, day 2, day 2. Like the NFL is not going to draft 13 running backs on day 2 or higher. It's going to be more like 8, 7, 8, 9. So
And there's going to be one that we don't expect,
sure,
right? That we think is like day 3.
Yes.
That instantly pops up into day 2, and you're like, wait, what? How did that one happen?
And I
that
think
happens too.
The landing spots and who that prospect is will be huge in determining how high they get steamed up. For right now, I think it's literally the big 5 running backs. Everybody's confident they're going in the 2nd round or higher. And then there's going to be a few more, but nobody that I've heard has conviction, at least from a NFL draft and a fantasy perspective, to say this is for sure my RB6 in fantasy, because they can't probably project that player to get anything higher than 3rd round capital. And we know that if a guy goes in round 3, but he goes to a spot that has 2 other running backs versus a guy that goes in round 4 that lands on a spot with nothing, I have no reservations pushing the round 4 guy up or the round 5 guy up. So because we don't have landing spots, I think we do have to kind of talk through the lens of who are the ones more likely to go higher. But that still doesn't mean, just because Dylan Sampson goes in round 3 doesn't mean he's higher than every round 4 running back. So I'm going to lock in Travion Henderson. I think he's the last of those 5. It'll be curious to see where you guys put the next group and how that mixes in with some of the veterans. But I think getting him at 107 is a steal. And now I think the draft really opens up for you, Brandon. This is where I think you can start thinking about veterans. You can start thinking about do I take the risk on the tight end? Like, what are you doing here? 108.
I'm going to take Shadur Sanders.
Okay.
Quarterback. I think this is where he's going to this is going to be the big, I think this is going to be the range where the folks that maybe don't necessarily believe in him to be anything more than just another quarterback are still going to say he's a value here. Right? Like this is because we've gotten past the 3 running backs in Tet. So that's kind of like your quote unquote tier 3, right? Because Mitch has got the 1, the 1B, and then 2. So this is like the beginning of 3 here, right? If there was more of a premium, this would probably be a spot where you could consider Warren or Loveland. But for me in the 12 by 11 with the quarterback and the positional value, like what I could potentially trade him for in season, we still don't know where we're going off of no landing spot. If he's attached to Malik Neighbors and he's throwing balls to Malik Neighbors, people are going to be back in on him to some degree. Like, even if I don't necessarily like him, I can at least move him into a quarterback that I maybe prefer, like maybe a Jared Goff, right? Or maybe I can get, one of the quarterbacks we're going to talk about later, right? And a pick. Like, I don't necessarily, like, I'm not pigeonholed by taking Shadur here at 108.
Yeah, Mitch, I was going to ask you at what point, because there's a lot of people that are listening to this that will put in the comments, oh man, I have the 110. What should I do? Who should I take? I don't think, this player will be available at the 110 in my league. What's the range in this format? If you were in this league, in this format, what would be the range where you would be proactively trying to get rid of these picks? If you thought the veteran you were getting was de-risking yourself from being stuck taking, maybe the last of a tier of a uninspiring positional group.
Honestly, in a league set up like this, the problem is it's the running backs. If I need a running back on my roster and I'm not getting a good one traded to me in order to move out, I'm probably not moving out the first round because I'm just going to pray that on draft day I can move up to get to that 107 or move up to get to that 108, wherever these guys end up dropping to, if Sanders goes higher, Matthew Golden goes higher, whoever. In the second round, like if I have an early second and I'm like, I don't know, I need a quarterback. I'm not going to get a quarterback at this point. I need a running back. I'll get one, but I might not get one the top 5. That's when I'm really actively trying to go and get a veteran at that point, because in my opinion, you're not going to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks, at the 204 in this year's draft.
So if you were at, like, let's say you're at the 110, 111, like you're at the 109 here, I think it could qualify based on how the board's gone. But let's say you're at the 109 through 112. The big 5 running backs are gone. Obviously, you're going to know the landing spots, and there may be a running back where you're like, I'm just gambling. There's one more running back that makes it an RB6 that I'm comfortable taking at the end of the first, and I will take it if I need one. But what type of running back would you be looking to just move one for one for these picks? Because I think that's where a lot of people run into the problems. It's like, the 110 doesn't even get you in the conversation for an Achane or a Gibbs or something like that. So the guy you can get is like, here, you can get Derrick Henry, you know what I mean? And which is fine, but that feels like you're settling a little bit from doing that trade. It just doesn't feel like there's a middle ground for running backs, or am I wrong? Like, what type of one would you trade this pick straight up for?
First name that popped in my head is Chuba Hubbard, because I think you don't have to do it straight up. I think you could get a kickback, but I think you're going to get decent production out of that. And it's a young enough guy. You don't have to be like, if Derrick Henry goes out and does something week 5, that pick is toast at this point. If you could get a young enough guy that could even give you something, in 26, 27, that's the move I make. David Montgomery is another one that immediately pops into my head. He's like a 204, 205 value. But I think you could actually get a little bit added on if you're like, hey, give me your David Montgomery, your third or whatever, then you can move up to the first. I think that could happen in a lot of leagues.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you pick at 109. I have a few names that I'll rip off maybe in the next couple picks that I'm hearing a lot of negativity on out there that I'd probably be willing to move these picks. If it was, I need a running back, I want a running back. And I know a lot of my leagues, I'm not going to be able to I'm not going to want to trade up the price it's going to cost to get the RB4 Travion Henderson. Someone's going to want another first. That's just not how I play the running back position. So what are you doing at 109 here, Mitch?
I'm going Matthew Golden. He is the guy that the NFL has loved. Well, at least the draft pundits have loved. We assume the NFL likes him as well from day one of the NFL draft cycle. I wasn't on him early. I'm on him now. I think everything he does it extremely well. He's not, the 6'4" guy that Ted McMillan is, but I think he does everything else perfectly. He has the speed. He has everything you want. It's just we didn't hype him up in October, November, because otherwise he'd be the 103, 104 right now. But because, if you would have said Emeka Egbuka is going to be, hey, a top 15 NFL draft pick, where's he going in drafts right now? But since we don't talk about him as much, now he's dropped a little bit. So Matthew Golden is just the guy to where I think we all need to kind of get on board with that. And he's going to be a top 10 pick in rookie drafts if I'm in the draft, because I'll take him there every time.
Yeah, I think he's probably the end of the tier of non-hybrid players that are going to go in the first round of this, and excluding tight ends. I think it's going to be interesting to see where any of the 3 of us take a tight end. I do think most 1.5 premiums someone will value Warren and Loveland higher than we are in this draft. One of them will probably be gone. So if you're looking at this, you might be able to push the tier back, maybe a pick or two. I just don't want to take a tight end, guys. Like, I was thinking earlier today, like I was looking at a league this afternoon where I have the 110. And I looked at the format. Now it was a point per carry league, which makes the starvation to get one of those top 5 running backs even higher. But I just know the way that this league is drafted, I'm not going to be able to get one. They're not going to fall to me. I'm not going to probably get one. So I looked at this team and I go, what would I trade the 110 for? It's point per carry. I think Justin Fields comes into play. If you really are willing to just ride out a year of production, I could probably stomach something as high as the 110 for Justin Fields. And just know you're not going to probably have a long-term asset, but you may get a guy that gets you multiple start windows over the next 3-4 years. Even if it's doesn't feel good, you're not investing a lot. I'm going to go Travis Hunter with this pick. I think it's the time to swing. I don't want to take the tight ends. The chat will probably crush me for not taking the tight ends. The way I play the positions here, I always feel like I can get replacement level tight end production for almost nothing, which is tight end, 10 to 20 for free. I don't know if I can just say, okay, Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren are in my lineup for something better than what I'm getting from a guy that I can get for almost nothing. So I'm going to go Travis Hunter. And I think that's where I'd also be willing to just lose the pick if he doesn't play receiver, but just willing to bet on it. So Travis Hunter, 110. Brandon, you're up. Are we thinking vets yet, Brandon? Has it come to your mind?
Yeah, and then when I did a little bit of digging, I was like, I don't really think I necessarily can do I don't have to do a 1-for-1 here. Like,
Correct.
If the reality is if DK Metcalf wasn't on Pittsburgh and he was still in Seattle, right now I would take DK Metcalf over Travis Hunter. I don't care. I know what I have, but right now their quarterback 1 is Mason Rudolph. That alone, if I have that DK Metcalf, nobody wants to trade for it because they do not want a guy that is attached to Mason Rudolph. That's just not. It's not something anybody's going to feel comfortable with. I am going to take Colston Loveland here. I think the slide is the tight end slide has finally come a little bit too far. I feel like the hype train on Loveland is kind of back. I feel like we started with the Warren over Loveland, and that steam built as we were going through the college football playoffs, and now the shift is kind of gone the other way, where Loveland is a little bit higher than Warren, and I would want to take advantage of that right now if we had the draft, because even if I maybe like Warren more than I like Loveland, I could probably take Loveland and go get Warren, or even maybe go get the Evan Ingram in a plus. I think right now he may not be a top 5 tight end, and that's okay. The beginning of the hype is there right now, and with the projected capital, people will feel comfortable with him. I'm cool taking Colston Loveland here at 111.
Yeah, I can't argue. I think this is farthest you'll see the tight end 1, whoever it is for you, fall in a mock. 112, Mitch, end of the first. What are you doing?
Jackson Dart, he's in everyone's first round of the mock draft now. It's been that slow drum beat, just like we've seen with some of these guys. I think this is, where he's going to end up going, because I think he's going to have to sit. And that's something that everybody's talked about this, he's not ready to be a starter in the NFL right now. So even if I really like him, but I can't take him at the 109 and have him sit the whole year and give me no value, even though the value will still be there, but giving me no points on my roster. That's a tough pill to swallow for 10, 11 weeks of the season. So I'm good taking him at the end of the first. I don't really want him in the middle to the end of the first. You know what I mean?
Yep. I'm going to go Tyler Warren at the 201. And I just want to bring this up before you make your pick, Brandon. So we did not take a veteran in the first 13 picks, right? But you will see people all the time post, hey, would you give up the 111 for Devontae Adams? Would you give up the 110 for DK Metcalf? Would you give up the 110 for Justin Fields? Would you give up the 112 for Sam Darnold? And a lot of times that's what it takes in a league to get the player from somebody else, even though when we have our choice and we have zero context for the teams we're drafting here, we're like, we would just prefer the rookie over the veteran. But there's a lot of people that would go, there's multiple players that move teams that they would give up a late first. Why do you think that is, Mitch? Just the psychology. Is it just as simple as, even though I don't think it's worth that, I have to pay a little of a tax to get it off your roster?
It definitely, and I think a lot of it's what you alluded to a few minutes ago, was when I would know what my team makeup is. And let's say I am at the 111. I had a good contending team last year. I lost in the semifinals. I have a good build out team. Devontae Adams is going to come in, be my wide receiver 3, but it's going to put me over the top. And I'm more willing to take that chance on that team than I'm be like, well, you know, Colston Loveland could come in and be a top 6 tight end. You know, value wise, but we're always like, hey, rookie picks, all of that stuff is better than the vet. But when it comes down to actually winning your league, that rookie value isn't helping you win your league unless you're out trading that rookie value, which you would be doing in this circumstance.
Yeah, good point. Brandon, thoughts real quick, and then who you taking at 202?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, you know, this time of year, everybody wants flexibility. Everybody wants the picks. They don't want the veterans because there's too much that can go wrong with the veteran between now and, you know, September 10th, right? They could quit one fall, you know, any one of these guys that we have listed in the veteran category hurts themselves in training camp and instantly nobody wants them. Right? They want the pick flexibility. How many times do we see an injury in preseason and we're in the Discord and Scott's like, sell, just sell. Just do it and get the pick flex, get the flexibility. And I think that's what people are in right now. But as Mitch said, like come December, when it's time to go win a chip, like those picks mean absolutely nothing. If, you know, I mean, if you want to win the value over winning championships, then yeah, keep trading all your veterans for picks. But if you want to actually, you know, win a championship in your league and have some bragging rights, go trade them. And that's what I'm going to do with this pick. I'm trading in the 202. I'm going to take Devontae Adams here. This is where I feel the most comfortable taking Devontae. He landed in a situation that's ideal for a wide receiver 2. And is he going to give me more than 2 years? Probably not. Probably, like realistically, probably not. But given this year and maybe even into next year, we've seen the Sean McVay offense be able to sustain 2 wide receivers at top 24 level. And even if Devontae has lost a bit of a step from his peak, he's still going to be able to probably be in the wide receiver 20 to 24 range. Like Puka can still be Puka and Devontae Adams can still be pretty good Devontae Adams. And I would much rather take the swing on a Devontae Adams over the mystery box of where Emeka Buka goes or Trey Harris goes or where the RB6 is currently. So I'm going to take Devontae here, 202.
First veteran off the board. Mitch, what you doing at 203?
Following with a veteran, but I'm going to go Justin Fields. To me,
do it.
His upside is it's just there. It's, you look at the quarterbacks we've already drafted, Cam Ward, Sanders, Jackson Dart. I would be willing to put a lot of money if FanDuel, DraftKings, whoever would have it, would be like, who's going to score more fantasy points out of these 4 quarterbacks? And Justin Fields was there. I mean, I'm putting absurd amount of money on Justin Fields because he's going to outscore these guys as long as he's a starter. And I think he's going to start because they haven't brought anybody else in. They're not going to draft anybody else. This is his team if he stays healthy, and he stays healthy. He has excellent playmakers. I think this is just a really, really good spot.
Yeah, I mean, again, certain formats, certain builds, I'm definitely considering giving picks probably as early as the 110 for Fields. And it's exactly what you said, is I'm expecting mercenary production for a year. Shane just said it the other day on Shane Says. He treats Fields as a 1 year. He's a running back rental that basically I'm assuming there's no future value. But here's the thing. If he's just decent, like holds on to the job for the whole season and he's quarterback 10 for fantasy, his value isn't 0 after 2025. Like he could start in 2026, but even if he's pushed by a rookie in 2026, guess what? He's still the type of quarterback that if you told me I need to roster for the next 3 years and he starts 10 games over that 3 years, I'm probably getting a lot of production out of those 10 games if I know when to start him. So I kind of feel like there's a floor of the investment that doesn't go to 0, barring he doesn't suffer some awful injury that takes him off the field. Like he's probably a backup with spot start juice for years, even if he doesn't hold on to a job, because my intent of buying him is not to resell him. So I think it's a great pick. If you can get him, if I have a hammer quarterback and then my QB2 is like suspect, I would much rather just trade a pick for Justin Fields than, go buy Derek Carr or Matt Stafford. Just the outcome is so much higher, and I'm probably getting the exact same future value proposition. I'm going to go back to the rookie well. I'm going to go with a receiver that I think people will like no matter what, because I think he's going to get either late first, early second round draft capital. He's an Ohio State receiver. I think I like him better than the other options on the board, just because I do think there's some name cachet and trade value. We could easily be looking up draft day and going, he landed as the wide receiver 2 complement to a better receiver, and he's going to start in the slot immediately and could get 115 targets. Like, he could be Zay Flowers, he could be JSN, you know what I mean? And that's Jordan Addison. And those are not terrible outcomes. They just didn't become wide receiver 1s overnight, and they probably never will be. So Mecca Buka 204, Brandon 205.
Yeah, and just a reminder for those who are maybe listening to this and maybe not watching this, we do have a list of veterans that we are incorporating into this format. So yes, when you look and you're like, how is this player that I'm about to take land at 205? Well, it's because we've put some veterans in those spots. So we're not going to just take double picks here. So I'm going to take Luther Burden. I think this is probably a good spot, a landing spot for him. I mean, he has slid a little bit in the NFL draft circles, but they're still within the fantasy circle a bit of, he's some people's wide receiver 1. And that's enough for me in the middle of round 2 to take the bite and go for, a Burden. I mean, again, even if I don't necessarily believe in him, or you don't believe in him as being a wide receiver, your wide receiver 1, or even a wide receiver 1, he's going to have the name cachet that you'll be able to move into, maybe a veteran down the road. I'm trying to think of another veteran here. Maybe one of you guys has a name that's popping in your head. Like, who would you be comfortable picking at here at the 205 if you had the trade?
Yeah, I think the story is very easy to tell, where it takes 2 games and people are moving 27 first for Luther Burden or Emeka Egbuka, or 26. It's very easy to see where those guys are worth a first, and it's not going to take much. Hell, it might even not have to play a game. It's just, wow, he's a starter and his quarterback is Justin Herbert. I'm paying a first. I don't care. He's going to be fine. So Mitch, 206, you're up.
Gonna go back to the veteran well, just because he's there. DK Metcalf. He's probably should be valued higher than this, but I can't take him over any rookie that's been drafted so far. And then I look at the rookies that are left on the board, and I'm like, I can't take any of them over DK Metcalf. So this was kind of like my default pick here. I don't love the guy. I don't love him with the Steelers. I don't love the non-quarterback situation that they have. I don't love how they run the offense. But he's DK Metcalf at mid-second round value. I have to take that.
I mean, Mitch, there's a world where they sign Aaron Rodgers, they ship off George Pickens, and people are going, wow, DK is going to be all they have, which hasn't been incredible, but it has been, Pickens hasn't been awful. You know what I mean? Like, for this price, I easily could see that value going up. And I'm curious because a lot of people will watch this video and they'll get into this next range of veterans and go, oh, so basically you're saying that the sell value for everybody else is like a late second, early third. I think you guys talked about that on Dynasty Theory a little bit, Mitch, that when you're selling, and I believe the deal was like Travis Etienne and you were selling for like the 211 or something like that. And the thought of, that's not really a ETN worth the 211. That's just a decision. Do I want ETN or do I want liquidity? There isn't really a player analysis there, but it's really just a bet on your construction, right? Because I don't think every one of these players is like, oh, I'd sell everybody on our list for a late second, because what are you doing with a late second? What's your plan, right?
It's really, really hard. I actually had a trade conversation come up today to where I loved the offer. It was 2 running backs for 2 of my picks in like the 2028. I mean, it was way out there, right? But with that league setup is my rosters are so small that I had to drop 2 players, so I countered with 2 players I wanted to drop. The guy was like, you know what? Never mind. This doesn't really make sense to me. And that was a Javonte Williams deal. It's one of those, when you have those aging vets, there's times to where people just want to get out and they're just willing to get out. So it's the 211 with Travis Etienne. It's, hey, I get the 211 and I get rid of this running back who's kind of clogging up my roster right now, and I want to go into full rebuild.
Yeah, I just did a deal the other day that was the opposite. I sent in a league where I had 5 first rounders, and I'm expecting to round my team into competition form this year. I traded the 111, the 201, the 210, the 304, and the 307. So 5 picks, 2 of them in the top 13, and I threw Tank Dell in because that's a guy I'm just like, if I can use him as any sort of value. But I got back Derrick Henry, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, and Aaron Jones. And the benefit there was it addressed a lot of needs that made all my other picks flexible. And it cleaned out another contender. Like, it completely wiped that team off the map. But individually, you'd go 111 for Derrick Henry. I don't know. 201 for Alvin Kamara. All of those would be like, yeah, that's about the right value, but it doesn't mean you could always buy for those prices. So, ooh, it is a tough spot. There's not an obvious rookie to take. So I'm going to pivot back to the veterans here. I'm going to go Sam Darnold. I don't love Sam Darnold. I don't love his landing spot, but I believe it was maybe Peter Schrager say something about how you don't pay a quarterback even a 1-year deal for almost $40 million for it to not work out. There's risk, but they're not looking at Sam Darnold as a 1-year plan. They're hoping it's a lot more. So I do think they will build around him a little bit with plans that he's a multi-year option, and I could easily see him fetching minimum 2 seconds if I wanted to sell, if they draft a receiver, do anything positive, because they haven't really done much around him. But I definitely think it's pretty good value at 207. I think people probably pay a little bit more for him. So 208, Brandon, you're up.
Cam Scadaboo. I'm going to run that pick I'm just going to run in and go throw that one in there as fast as possible.
Where do you think he gets drafted? NFL draft. Do you think he's one of the guys that sneaks into day 2? Or do you care?
If he does, it's probably going to push him out of the 208 range. Let me say that. Like, if he is early day 3, if he's 4th round, people are probably still in that mindset of it's 4th round. Right. Even if the opportunity is there, it's 4th round. I can't, like, the data tells me that it's the wrong thing to do. So I don't want to take the swing earlier in the 2nd round. But if he's like, pick 90, pick 91, which is where I think he would land. It'll be like a late day 3 or late round 3. Like, yeah, I could see him being like right where DK Metcalf is.
Well, yeah, he'd be the 204 here if we take out the veterans. So I do think it's probably the higher end of the 2nd round is where you're basically taking him.
Yeah, like, I mean, Mitch would easily trade out of that Cam Scadaboo to go get DK Metcalf. Like, that's just,
yes, I would.
like in a heartbeat, right? Like, you would do that. So, like, and most people would, right? If they're looking for a way, like, again, I always, I've said it a couple times tonight. Like, if you don't believe in the player, like, go find somebody who you can believe in. And for Mitch in that spot, it's DK in this draft. But maybe there's a different opportunity. Maybe you can get Aaron Jones in a plus because somebody believes Jordan Mason is going to come in and steal a bunch of work. Like, that this is the art of dynasty deals, right? Like, you're just trying to find guys that have a little bit of steam that make them movable. If you don't like them, what can make them move? And Cam's the guy that people want to move for.
I like that. I do think he has maybe the highest ADV of the class outside of the top 5 for sure, that they'll have a cult following. Mitch, 209, what you doing?
Jaden Higgins. He's just a guy to where I hear the draft pundits never put him in the 1st round, not even mention. But as soon as they're like, well, who haven't we talked about that everybody likes? Everybody loves Higgins. I think he's going to go early 2nd. That's my assumption. That's why I'm willing to take him over some of the other wide receivers that I still kind of like. I think he is just the guy that's next on the list after Burden and Buka. To me, he's like the next guy right there.
Ooh, I didn't think you would go there, but I think that's There's some conviction there.
There
Do
is.
you
With
think
me, there is.
I mean, I know you were on Trey Harris early.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Knowles got a lot of buzz. I mean,
Like him a lot too.
Aya Manor, like how obviously it's pre-draft, so you're taking Higgins over those guys right now. But
Yes.
like how do you evaluate how you tier those receivers? Let's assume they all get respectively the same draft capital. Like how much does landing spot change for those types of receivers, the round 2, early round 3 guys?
I was just going to say landing spot, coaching scheme, quarterback there with that. It's 100% all of it. Like if one of them goes with Geno, I'm in on that wide receiver because I know Geno is very good with his wide receivers. I mean, we heard DK Metcalf had a interview today to where he was just talking up how good Geno is for wide receivers. But then you have one that goes to, let's say we have one that goes to Detroit. Whatever reason, Detroit decides, hey, Tim Patrick, the wide receiver 3 is not working out. I'm going to drop that guy down a little bit because there's just no way he's going to get enough of the targets to do anything in fantasy. So landing spot is so huge for me, especially after you get out of the first round.
Yeah, I'm going to go quarterback here. I'm going to make it easy. I'm going to go Geno Smith. I think this is probably a very specific to I want a quarterback and I don't want to pay a first. I didn't get one of the guys in the first that I'd be comfortable. I didn't get Justin Fields. This is very much, I'm just putting this caveat out there. This is very much if you can get a quarterback like Geno that can even get you, and he hasn't got his extension yet, that'll probably make this solidified if he gets an extension and he's locked in multiple years. But I think this is probably what it costs to get him, but I'm not doing this for the value. This is I'm pretty comfortable, especially if I have a couple thirds, maybe a couple fourths. I'm very comfortable just picking players there and just saying what pick is going to take me to get a quarterback if I need one. If I don't need a quarterback here, then I'm passing on Geno, but I'll take him here just because I do think getting a guy that could start multiple years for a late second is a pretty decent proposition. So Geno 210. How many veterans is that? We got Adams, Fields, Metcalf, Darnold, and Geno, and we're at the 211. So effectively, this is like the 206 rookie pick. Brandon, what are you doing?
Trey Harris. I think this is
Okay.
I think there's going to be enough steam on him he's going to be a top 65 pick in the NFL draft. Like he's got the size. He's going to probably land, if he lands in a spot where he can be utilized, outside, ideally that would be the best. I mean, he can be inside. It's perfectly fine. But if he's outside, I mean, we saw what he has the potential to do this season with Jackson Dart, right? We saw that potential, and that's enough. That's enough in leagues where all he has to do is break one big one, right? It's all he has to do is just break a deep ball. He's long, he's quick. He just battled a lot of injuries, and if he didn't have injuries in the second half of the season and he ends up putting 1,400 yards up at Ole Miss alongside Jackson Dart, and they may have made the playoffs because he was healthy, and Jackson Dart had to end up throwing to Caden Prescorn and Lee and all the other guys. Like they had to elevate themselves. Like if they were in the college football playoff, we'd be talking a lot more about Trey Harris, but just because he was hurt the second half of the year, it was kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, I like the conviction. Mitch, we're at the point now where I think it's very much, this is the territory where if you wanted one of the veterans that's still on the board, you have to pay this type of pick to get it.
Yes.
But clearly we're not drafting with like the thought in mind that a couple of these guys are worth seconds, because clearly they're not if we're, passing on these rookies or passing on some of the players that are available. This seems like the type of pick that if you're really wanting to get, a Najee off somebody's roster, like you're not doing it for the 308. You know what I mean? They're going to want more. So what are you doing at 212?
You just brought him up. I want Najee. And this is you look at the 206 for Najee, it's hard, but people were falling over themselves trying to get Kamani Vidal on their teams because, hey, these other backs, Gus Edwards isn't going to do anything. Dobbins is going to get broken like he always is. So everyone wanted Vidal. Like Najee Harris is a good back that is going to play in the league for another few years, and they're going to give him 200, 250 touches this year. He stays healthy. I don't know what there's not to love about him besides he's a plotter, and we don't like plotters. And it's just something in fantasy. It's why people don't like Caleb Johnson anymore. Oh man, he ran that 4.57, whatever it was. Can't like him anymore. Dude, these guys just last in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most fascinating pick. Where does Najee Harris slot into the rookies? Because let me ask you this, Mitch. Who would be the next rookie running back you would have taken if you win a rookie running back?
DJ Giddens.
DJ Giddens goes to the Chargers. Is it still Najee over Giddens?
Oh, that's
Because
tough.
that's a realistic possibility, right? Like one of these running
really
backs
could.
in this range goes to the Chargers.
Honestly, it kills Giddens for me because I don't.
Okay.
Najee's the guy that Harbaugh is going to fall in love with. They're not going to be like, hey, we're taking you off the field for this 4th round rookie that we grabbed, in my opinion.
And did you see they gave him the whole tour of the facilities and he signed his like they treated him like he was the prized free agent signing. Then you're like, dude, it was a 1-year, $6 million deal, but they treated him like it's a huge signing because probably in that room, like it is a huge signing for what they want to do on offense. So,
yep.
All right, starting the third, which is really, what is this? The 207 from a rookie perspective, because we've taken 6 veterans. I'm gonna go. Oh man, I'm tempted to take a receiver, but I would be violating my receiver principles. I've told myself, guys, that this year I'm just not, unless I have a plan with a receiver, because I don't think there's another receiver right now that goes in the top. Maybe Iron Manor could sneak into the top 50, maybe Jalen Noel, but I just think they're both mid to late second, third round players in the NFL draft, and that's a risk if you're drafting them. So I'm just going to go Dylan Sampson. I think there's 5 running backs I could take. I think he gets the highest capital of all the ones available, but that's just simply going off capital. Obviously, he's in the range where the landing spot could totally change, just like you said with Giddens. Like, depending on where he goes, the landing spot can completely change that. So Dylan Sampson, 301, which is really the 207. Brandon, you're up.
This is the point where you want to take like an Evan Ingram, but you know that if you try to offer the 302 for Evan Ingram, you're just going to get laughed at right now. Like you could have probably offered.
It's really a mid-second.
Right.
The illusion of the mid-second is different than a third. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you offer a real 302 to a team right now for Cooper Kupp or Evan Ingram, they're not accepting.
Yeah, you're not getting them. Yeah, you're definitely not getting them. But I am going to go.
Don't draft him.
I'm not. Because I do want to go running back here. I just feel like this is the draft to lean into the running backs. And I'm going to go with one that has had a little bit of buzz over the last few weeks, at least on social media. And that's RJ Harvey.
Yeah.
Like he's, compact back, has, played very well at UCF, has the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. Like we play a game that predicates it on running backs who catch the football, and he does it and does it quite well. Now that's not to mean that Devin Neal can't and DJ Giddens can't, but RJ Harvey, I like him in this spot here at 302.
Yeah, I think for everybody watching, even if you're just listening, pay attention to this range is where I think we're going to just start ripping through running backs.
Yep.
And it's not so much about the name, but it's about the range of the draft where you're going. This is probably the range you're going to want to be late second to mid to late third. If you're looking at one of those teams that just needs to rebuild the entire running back room, like you just want to have multitudes of picks in this range. Mitch, 303.
Going Evan Ingram only because I think he's the tight end that can actually be a top 6 guy. I mean, we've seen it before. Denver has nobody to throw to. Sean Payton came out and said, we need to have a running back and we need to have a tight end. I mean, and we know how Payton's offenses roll. He's going to get peppered with targets. He's just a guy that, so this would be what the 208, whatever it would be with the veterans taken out. I'm happy to pay that on contending teams. Of course, if I had the 303, I'm probably a bad team in the first place. I'm not going after Evan Ingram, right? But a contending team, and I have Hunter Henry as like one of my tight ends. I'll just give you Hunter Henry in my pick to get Evan Ingram at this point.
Yeah, I think another good point of delineation, Evan Ingram as the tight end 3 of the class.
Yeah.
So you feel more comfortable regardless of, would there be a situation where you would would it be very much, if I don't need a tight end, I'm not interested in Evan Ingram, or like, because I'm not interested in picking the rookie tight ends at this point either, other than value propositions. But I think it's very interesting how we're taking Ingram at tight end 3. A lot of people out there would go, there's going to be at least one more tight end I would clearly put ahead of Ingram in my quote unquote dynasty ranks.
Yeah, the only one that I would include is Mason Taylor if he gets a good landing spot. He goes the Chargers. He goes somewhere that they need tight ends. He would be one that I would be willing to put close to Evan Ingram. There isn't another one on the list. Landing spot combined in everything, I think Taylor's the only one that's close to these guys in talent.
All right, 304, I am up. I'm going to go rip another running back. I'm going to go Bashal Tootin. I think he's got a trait that not a lot of the other guys in the class do. There's fast guys, and then there's guys that are super fast. And I think he's probably a 4th-round running back. I don't think he gets into day 3 or day 2. But I think I can probably sell people on him depending on where he goes. Still landing spot dependent, but it's interesting how Mitch would have taken Giddens, and he's still on the board. Yep. But he could easily, all these guys could be interchanged. So Brandon, 305, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm taking Devin Neal. Again, another guy.
Non-Giddens run, and I can't argue with him.
I mean, but here's the thing is like, we look at Scattaboo, Sampson, Harvey, Tootin, Neal, Giddens, like this range of like 12 guys that literally a month, 5 weeks from now, 3 or 4 of these guys can be absolutely obliterated and they're not getting drafted until round 4. Right? Like that's just going to be the reality of it all. Right? This is all going to be jumbled up, and you're taking a swing on what you think a trait or something that could fit with an opportunity. And Ray says it a lot. Situation matters. And I think all of us kind of agree with that thought process. Is situation matters. So we're taking a name, and it's not that I think less of Giddens or I think higher of Harvey over. I'm just taking guys because I'm like, these guys are just going to hang out in this tier, and let the draft tell us where we need to navigate. I mean, we could come back to the draft in a month and be like, yeah, Brandon took all the wrong ones and Mitch got all the value on the running backs, right? It could just happen that way.
Yeah, I think it's important to really not pay attention to the order we're taking these guys, but more of the macro tier that we're putting them in. Mitch, you're going to pull a Shane, and you talked about Giddens and then still not take him here. What you doing?
No, I won't go full Shane on this one. I'm going to go Giddens. And just to carry on with what you guys are saying, these guys they're good backs. Tootin is probably the one that has like an elite trait that you could point to, be like, hey, he's extremely good at this. All these other guys, they're pretty good at this, but they're definitely lacking with this. But we really like them because of this reason. So all these guys, they're good backs who could be good on an NFL team if they get the chance. But all these guys could get buried on a team, and then all of a sudden, they're Kendre Miller. Yeah. And then they're nothing on your team now after 2 years.
Well, and it's interesting because Kendre Miller didn't get buried after the draft. People loved where he went. He went in the 3rd round, and he wasn't good, and so couldn't stay healthy. So it's a different outcome, but there are a lot of negative outcomes with a running back in the 4th round. There could be there could be a team that takes another running back in this class. There's going to be a couple teams that take 2. And I'm sitting here going, man, I like that guy in the 4th, but I kind of like the guy they got in the 5th too. Remember when Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams went back-to-back rounds? And there was times in their career where it was like everyone liked Jones better, but Williams got drafted higher, and there were windows where Williams was better and got more work. And so, yeah, there could be a couple teams that double up. I'm going to go another one that I think goes in round 4, but brings a very specific skill set. I'm going to go Ollie Gordon. I still think he has the name. I think he's going to be drafted for a very specific reason. I think he's going to be very landing spot dependent. I mean, we've done a couple mocks where it's like, remember we did one a couple weeks ago where Ollie Gordon went to the Texans. We're like, oh, that'd be a good landing spot. No, it wouldn't. Like that's a spot where he's just behind a guy that it does everything that he can do, but better. And so until that other guy is just out of the way, there isn't going to be a role for him. So that wouldn't be one that I would like. But he could go to a place where, he goes to Pittsburgh, he goes to Cincinnati. Like he's a different type of running back than what they have, and could have a role day 1, and he still has a name. So Ollie Gordon, what's that, the 307? So that's the end of the 2nd round. Now we're actually into the 3rd round rookie pick values because we've taken 7 veterans. So it's Brandon, 308.
Yeah, I'm going to take a veteran here. I'm going to go Cooper Kupp.
Okay.
This is where, top of the, if somebody sent me 301 for Cooper Cup, sure. People not really feeling so great about the Seattle spot. There's been a lot of, oh, well, he's gonna overlap with JSN. I mean, how do we even
But
know
you're
yet?
accepting the 301? Or you would
No,
pay the 301 to get it?
I would pay
Okay.
the 301 to go get Cooper Cup. Like, they're gonna have to throw the football. Like, they're not just gonna turn around and hand it off 400 times to an oft injured backfield of Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. They're going to have to, there's going to be vacated targets from Tyler Lockett. There's vacated targets from DK. Yeah, JSN can absorb maybe 25, 30% of them, but they're still going to throw the football. Yeah, they signed MVS. I'm sure they'll probably in the draft probably get another, probably round 3, round 4. Like, they could probably get one of these guys, like, Jalen Knoll or Jaden Higgins. They could get one of these guys and people feel special. But the reality is Cooper Kupp still probably got, when healthy and he's on the field, he's going to be worth more than whatever I'm going to get at the 301 in terms of production.
I listened to that interview.
Okay.
The interview he did with, I believe it was the Insiders, and he kind of talked about it. Sounds like he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I don't know how long it'll last, but I think this is a fun story to track. I mean, literally the team that drafted him, developed him, like that was his home, has basically told him, go away. We don't want anything to do with you. And now he's in a division rival. So I do think he could give you a year of production that's well worth, a 3rd round pick. Mitch, 309.
This is where I take shots on guys who like. There's other prospects I like more than this player, without a doubt, but I want guys who could hopefully get up to an early 2nd value. I'm going with Jalen Milroe. I don't think he's a good quarterback. This isn't my personal value, but all it takes with a guy like this is 2 starts. And if he gets 2 starts and he looks borderline decent, there will be someone in your league that's willing to pay a lot more than what this would be, like the 303 in the rookie drafts. You'll get a lot more than that back. And so I love taking like these big risks in the 3rd and 4th round instead of going like, I personally love Royals. I've talked about Royals on almost every single mock draft. Is Royals going to really get up to that 2nd round value? Probably not. I mean, more than likely, it's not going to happen.
Mock draft database still has Milroe, big board, in the 2nd. He's going to go in the 2nd or the 3rd. If you told me that what does it cost you to buy a spot start quarterback, Mitch, to buy a Cooper Rush for 2 starts? It usually costs a 3rd, right?
It does, minimum.
And you've drafted a guy here at that same price point that, you'd prefer his starts, if he ever starts, over Cooper Rush or Mason Rudolph, right? But there's still potential for more. Like, there's potential where he finds himself a window where he starts 10 games in a row. And even if he only gets 2 or 3 of those games where he's a top 12 QB, that's better than a 3rd, but there's also the trade value. He probably should belong in the tier with Sampson, Harvey, Tootin, Neal. Like, he'll go in that range. I think you got a really good value on him here, getting him where you did. He probably belongs at the higher end of that running back range, because not all 6 of those running backs are going to survive being worth this versus what Milroe could be. All right, I'm up at the 310. I think, okay, I'm going to go one more running back that I think doesn't go till day 3, but could easily fall into that tier of the guys we already took. I'll go Damian Martinez. Another one, I think very similar to Ollie Gordon. I honestly don't even know who I'd prefer between Martinez and Gordon. They could be interchangeable for me. So I'll go Martinez at the 310. That puts Brandon up at the 311.
Torn between 2 players. I don't know which direction I really want to go.
Veterans or rookies?
One's a veteran, one's a rookie.
Ooh,
and
the
totally
rookie or
different
the vet?
And one's they're different positions. So it's not even like I'm splitting hairs on the same position. I'm gonna go again. I'm gonna go against the veteran here. I'm gonna go Mason Taylor. I think this is probably a really good spot for him to land. I know Mitch was hoping he would land to him at 312 there, but I think the tight end 3 drafted rookie wise in this draft. Mitch laid out a great case for him earlier. He has the pedigree too, right? He's he's got the Taylor bloodline, so he's got the NFL pedigree. He's going to have that cachet, which may carry him a little bit longer than somebody like a Harold Fannin or a Ferguson that doesn't necessarily have that. So yeah, give me Taylor here.
Yeah, Mitch, I think he goes in the second round of the NFL draft. He will not fall to the third of a 1.5 premium, even if we don't value him. If you're picking here, you can probably assume you're going to get one of those running backs, because I do think someone will take Milroe, someone will take Mason Taylor, someone may take another tight end, just based on how people typically draft, even if we don't value the position. So this is the 312. It's really I believe the 304, because we have 8 veterans off the board. So Mitch, you're up.
Alec Manor. He's the best wide receiver still on the board, in my opinion. He's the one that's probably going to go the highest in the NFL draft from everything that we've seen. And he probably has the highest ceiling of all the guys that are left, all the rookies that are left, in my opinion. I think he could go out there and be a stud, and to get him in the third round, which, looking at the rookies that are drafted already in front of him, I think we're going to see him go pretty close in this range, unless he just gets an absolutely amazing landing spot.
Yeah, I can't argue. He's probably going to go in the same range as a couple of the receivers that went, Trey Harris, 211, Jaden Higgins, 209. He could go right in the same range, and we could easily be having him over those guys when we get to draft day. We'll start the fourth. We'll go a little quicker on these, even though we're making pretty good time. I'm going to go with a veteran here. I'm going to go with Daniel Jones. I think there's a lot of ways you could win this. It's what would this be? The 305. I think a lot of the same stuff you would say about Justin Fields could apply to Daniel Jones. He just doesn't have the same immediate opportunity. But I also think they didn't give him $14 million to just plan to never play him. I think they want him to never start, but the contract reflects that they're having to pay him to start a little bit. You know what I mean? He's going to get some starts, whether that's an injury. I mean, everyone forgets about the A-Rich injury history because it got overshadowed by his poor play and benching last year. But there's still a world where Richardson is decent, but gets injured for 4 games and Daniel Jones starts. And I do think if you're just looking for mercenary starts, you could do way worse than Daniel Jones. In fact, you probably can't buy Daniel Jones for anything less than a late second, early third, because the person that has him is probably the person that thinks he's going to be the starter, and they're not selling for what he is right now. So I'm locking him in 401. Brandon, I saw your face. You're a Giants fan, a recovering Daniel Jones fan. You get sniped?
It did, because that was the guy I was actually thinking about. I was debating him at the 311, and I was like, well, I could probably shove up another couple picks because nobody's going to take him here. Nobody really wants that. Because the thing is nobody really wants Daniel Jones. Even though he's with A-Rich, if week 3 he's named the starter, it's still going to be really hard for anybody to really want to go absorb Daniel Jones because of what he did in New York. He's going to have to go out and be almost completely different than what he was in New York for folks to really believe that, all right, maybe it was the situation. Maybe he just couldn't fit in New York. If he goes out and does the exact same thing, it's just well, he is what he is, right?
But isn't this the pick where a mid-third, you can just live with that being the outcome, right?
Absolutely.
I know he sucks. Everyone knows he sucks, but if he gives me 6 starts and 3 of them are good, that's worth what I paid. You know what I mean?
And they don't have to change the offense because he can run too. That's the thing, is he can run. He's not.
Yep.
It's not like years past where they brought in Flacco behind A-Rich and Flacco's not going to run. Daniel Jones, if he doesn't have his first read, he's running. He's going somewhere. So, there actually is some upside in that Indianapolis offense with him at the helm. Not to belabor the point, I'm going to go with Brashard Smith here at the 402. Okay. Again, we're kind of getting into the point. There's still a few running backs left that we probably all feel a little bit comfortable with. Yeah, I wouldn't probably put him in the tier that has Tootin, Harvey, Giddens, that group, but he's got the ability that he's probably going to be mid to late day 3, probably in that 5th, 6th round where people are just taking shots, and you're just hoping that he lands in a spot where he can be the 1B to a dominant 1A.
Yep. Where they don't have a Brashard Smith already is what you're hoping for.
Yeah, we don't need another Will Shipley.
Yep. Fair. All right, Mitch, 403.
Christian Kirk. I'll take him. He's the guy that you could throw in your flex spot every single week, and you don't need to move him out until he's either injured or they're on a bye. Like, he's just the guy that's going to get you 10 points. He might get you 18 points one week, but the floor is fine with him, and they don't have anybody to throw to outside of Nico Collins. And I just think it was a good move by them to go and get him for CJ Stroud, even though they're blowing up the line. But at this value, I can't pass up a guy like Christian Kirk.
So it's funny because my next pick is actually a guy I've seen mocked to the Texans. So I'm going to go Jalen Noel here.
That was going to be my other pick, to be honest with you.
If they draft a guy like Jalen Noel, or I think Royals, Restrepo, somebody like that could signify kind of what they expect out of Christian Kirk. But if they drafted one of those guys, maybe late round 2, round 3, does that change the bet on Kirk? Or are you still betting him to be basically just a 1-year producer with a good quarterback that he's still going to be able to fend off one of those rookies for targets?
At this price point, I'm fine paying it. Is this 3rd round rookie or 4th round rookie at this point going to actually do anything in the NFL? More than likely not. I mean, we could love him right now in the draft process. The odds are these guys aren't going to be fantasy producers on your team.
It's interesting, Brandon, because if Jalen Noel in the 2nd went to the Texans, the narrative would be Christian Kirk is just nuked to the moon. Right?
Oh, he's gone. He's dead. He's dead. He's dead. He's just. Why did they pay him $18 million and spend the draft capital for getting the same player? That'll be the boring narrative on it. But I mean, they need bodies. They lost Tank Dell, they lost Stephon Diggs. Like, they got to replace 2 wide receivers. So it's not a bad thing if they actually end up getting Jalen.
God forbid they have 3 decent receivers on the team, right?
Yeah, in a pass heavy offense, in a pass heavy NFL, all of a sudden it's bad to have 3 wide receivers. It's bad. Maybe it's bad for fantasy, but it's great for NFL.
And I think one thing Mitch didn't say, and then I'll let you make a pick, that this is start 11. So you're much more likely to have a spot where you're like, screw it, I'm just going to throw somebody in. You know what I mean? Like, if this was a start 9 or a start 10 or a 10-team start 10, you could almost just pass on a guy like Kirk entirely for just a shiny new toy, because there's probably more potential with the new toy. But in this format, where the tight ends are less likely to be in the flexes, kind of feels like if you can just fill out that last flex spot this cheap with a guy that's going to give me 11 to 12 points a game, like, sure, I can be fine if that turns to complete dust after this season. So go ahead, Brandon. 405.
I'm going to take Woody Marks. I'm just going to keep the running back train going. I think Ray's very high on him, has him in his top 5 at 5th. He had a very good production in the SEC, went out to USC, produced well there. Like, he's kind of, he's an older prospect. So, the folks that don't like the older prospects are probably not going to be nearly as high on him. But here at the 405, which is like the end of the 3rd, if he finds some opportunity, he's the kind of guy that I can recycle into a veteran and another reroll in 26 for a 4th. Like, he's the kind of guy that any moment that he gets any kind of hype in the training camp, in the rookie hype, like, okay, what do you want? See, like that's where we're at with these picks. We're not looking for a 4-game sample size for us to finally move them. Like, any kind of hype, I'm just cashing out and trying to find something else.
Yeah, Mitch, that's RB 15 off the board from a rookie standpoint. We've still not taken the 2 veterans we've not taken, Mitch, Rico Dowdle and Javonte Williams, which, depending on how you feel about those guys, that they're not in bad spots. Like, that's the thing. Like, they're probably competing with literally some of these names that we're taking now, especially Javonte. Like, probably the guy that's going to join Javonte, we've already taken. And we still haven't had that conversation on whether he has any role. So you're up 406.
I love Javonte. It's just his injury history's hard, and he could get buried in a heartbeat. I mean, if the Cowboys go out, they could be a team that goes out and drafts 2 running backs. It could easily happen. Yes. I'm actually going to go with Taj Brooks. He's a guy that's grown on me the more and more that I hear about him. The dude he was a flat workhorse for Texas Tech. But I mean, running back 16 at this point. We'll see if we get to running back 18 or 19, but we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, and I think I have a lot of rosters that literally are going to be picking a bunch in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th. And depending on how many picks I have, if I have like 4 third-rounders, I'm okay sending one of them for Javonte Williams. I don't need all rookies. If I only have 2 picks, I probably don't want to send those for Javonte Williams. So I think having some context to how your running back room already looks, you're totally justified for sending, I think, a third for Dowdle or Javonte, because that's what it's going to take to buy him. Someone's not going to give them to you because they're confident they're going to be able to replace that guy in the 4th round. So there's levels to building a running back room. I don't want 10 rookies. I don't want no rookies in this class. So I think that's a huge driver as to whether I would actually bid or trade for Javonte. I mean, this team I'm drafting for already has Henderson and Ollie Gordon. So would I take Javonte over one more running back? I'm going to go Trevor Etienne. I think he's the last running back that I'd probably put in the range of I'm willing to take the upside, the name, everything that comes with that over the veterans. But I think we're in the range where you have to have that conversation about, do I want to trade for a veteran or do I want to draft the RB 17 right now? I mean, there's not going to be 17 running backs, guys, that have 3rd round value or higher. There's just not. Some of these guys are going to get buried. They're going to go in spots where people really don't want them, and they're going to pivot. And they'd much rather have veterans come draft day than drafting at the 312.
Yeah, when the New York Jets draft, Taj Brooks
any running
round
back
5, you're just like, nope, all right, he's gone. See you later. I'm going to take Tyler Shuck here.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think everyone just kind of forgets about him, right?
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at a list. I'm like, wait a minute, we have there's all these quarterbacks still left here. And it may not be, it's not necessarily a quarterback heavy draft, but he's gonna probably get. I mean, from everything I've listened to and read, he's moved up the boards. He's an older prospect. Yes, he's got an injury history that's longer than a CVS receipt. But if he lands in an opportunity like Cleveland, and they don't take Shedeur Sanders, and they take Abdul Carter at 2, and they sign a Russ Wilson, and it's Russ and Tyler Shuck, like, there's a reality that he's probably going to get on the field over Kenny Pickett, because they're going to want to see what they have in him to see if he's even remotely worth being a backup. So I'm going to take the shot on a guy like that in the 4th round, which is equivalent to what, like the 312, 401. Like, he's the kind of guy that, if he gets in the spot starts, maybe I can get a third for him the second he's announced the starter, and I just move the train along.
Yep, this is the 408, and we've had 10 veterans, so it's the 310. So it's a late 3rd for a quarterback that probably, you're right. I think that's the biggest selling point on these late day 2, day 3 QBs is there's a trend in the NFL where, if you watch that draft show that I did, that teams don't take quarterbacks in the 2nd round. 2nd rounds are viewed from NFL perspective as starters. So they're sitting there going, oh, we can get a corner. We can get, a defensive tackle or whatever it is. We can get a guard in the 2nd round. But the 3rd and the 4th, they're starting to look at that like, this can either be my backup quarterback for the future. It could be a quarterback that we might need to use. We might hit on a Russell Wilson or a Dak or a Brock Purdy. Like, so you're more likely to see those guys go in those round 3, round 4 slots to teams that do have a quarterback problem. You're not going to see a team that already has, probably Trevor Lawrence take a quarterback in the 3rd. It's going to be a team where you're like, wow, that guy could actually start. And if they do, you have an angle to move. Mitch, you got 2 picks left. Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
I was going to say, but right before Mitch started, like, how many times over the last 2 years, we've seen at least 40 plus quarterbacks start an NFL game.
Oh,
so
more.
I mean,
50 plus per season, sometimes up to 60.
So the fact that we're thinking, Tyler Shuck, he's never going to get on the field. Like, there's a real chance that if he's in the pick range from 65 to 165, like, there's a probably more than 30% chance he's going to see the field at some point. So we need to consider that when we're at the later end of these drafts, like, kind of loading up on some of these dudes, even though you may not want them, like, they may be worth it to you over taking the RB 18.
Yeah, and Mitch, there's a point where with these picks, it's probably, I mean, when I do the war episode, people will kind of see, but even if you just extend that out, like, I'm looking at 3rd round picks and beyond as I don't care about the future. I'm looking for some equity quick.
Yeah.
Whether it starts, whether it's flip value, like, the thought of Tyler Shuck's never going to have any dynasty value because he's old and nobody really likes him. Like, I don't care. The angle I'd be taking him with has 0 to do with whether he's starting in 2026. It's immediately, what can I do with that asset? So you have 2 picks left. What are you doing? 409.
I'm just happy that there's enough guys left that I don't have to consider taking Quinn Ewers. I was really worried that like towards the end of this draft, I was going to have to take him, and I'm so happy I don't have to do it. I'm gonna go Jalen Royals. He's there. I think he's a round 3 NFL guy at worst. I could easily see him going in the second round. He's a guy I love. He's just one of those mid-school backs at Utah State to where competition isn't great. But against Boise State, he was awesome. He had over 200 yards. Dude was a stud against them. Got injured this past year, and didn't last the whole season. But he's a guy that I'm just going to keep taking over and over and over in these drafts.
Yeah, this is why I love these later rounds, because I think this class isn't good. I was thinking today when I was on the treadmill, I'm going, I have some teams that don't have a lot of 2025 picks. But I actually don't think we're going to look back in a year and say this not having pieces of this 2025 class burned your dynasty teams for 2025. Like, I don't think the impact of this class outside of the running backs that get opportunity early is going to burn the overall team that didn't have those picks. But I think the ADV and the stories you can tell with a lot of these players are fascinating. Like, just the narrative I can craft for so many of these running backs, for guys like Milroe and Shuck, the tight ends, even if we don't think the tight ends matter, that's what I'm going to do here at 410. I think Elijah Arroyo goes way higher than this.
Yeah.
In a 1.5 premium. Someone will go, he's going to go in the second round, and he's athletic and he's going to be a weapon right away. Like, there's no way I'm going to let him fall, but he's very much a narrative pick for me. This isn't the format where I'm expecting him anything other than to be a trade piece or be a narrative piece that I can use. So that's my last pick at 410. All right, Brandon, you and Mitch, are you guys going to rescue Javonte Williams or Rico Dowdle, or is it no? Are they just not even getting picked? You shaking your heads. What are you doing?
I'm taking Rocket Sanders here.
Okay.
That's the guy that I feel pretty comfortable. Like, there's still enough of the Devi belief, the hopium from, his freshman and his sophomore year, and he had a little bit of sideways in the SEC. He had to go to, had to transfer out to get to another place and give himself a little more opportunity. But he's had a really good draft cycle here, and I think there's still going to be, if he lands in a spot with an opportunity at his size and his speed, people will be back in on him. And again, we're looking for just that little bit of brief spurt for me to get to, a 26th third. That's really what I'm trying to shoot for. So if I can find somebody here that can get me a 26th third, let's go.
Rookie RB 18 off the board, Mitch. What are you going to do to close us out?
Let's go Javonte. And the big reason for this, we just barely said, hey, the Cowboys could go out and draft 2 running backs. It's also the Cowboys who were more than willing to walk into last year with Rico Dowdle as their main carry back. And so there's every chance in the world this team is like, look, Javonte's our guy, and we'll move ahead from there. So at this point in the draft, you might as well take a shot on a guy who's actually on an NFL roster right now.
I think that's a great point. Is like the Cowboys, we think they should take a running back early, if not 2. They may go, oh, we can get a guy in the 5th, and that's the only guy we draft. And all of a sudden you're going, wait, it's Javonte Williams versus Rocket Sanders. Who's going to start? And it's probably not going to be Rocket Sanders. So I love it. Well, guys, we did it. We drafted 11 of the 12 vets. We did not draft Rico Dowdle. I think you could probably make the same arguments for Rico Dowdle that you made for Javonte Williams. Honestly, he's a running back. He might even have a better shot of not having a rookie drafted. But obviously, if the Panthers were to take any of these rookie running backs, then it gets really muddy in terms of what did they really view Rico Dowdle with. But I'll recap it in a second just for the audio listeners. Anything stand out to you? 30 seconds, Brandon. Anything, just the flow of this? This was a different exercise for us because you don't usually draft this way where you're intermixing veterans with rookies. And there's obviously a lot of context that goes into this exercise. But anything stand out to you? Takeaways?
Just because there's not as many quarterbacks to be able to draft, where we drafted Fields and where we drafted Darnold and where we drafted Smith. It's not like you're going to replace those names with Milroe, Chuck, and Kyle McCord or Quinn Ewers, right? You're not just instantly filling those spots in with quarterbacks. So it's good. Once you get past Jackson Dart, it's going to take a lot of dynasty discipline to not just pull the trigger too fast on a Milroe, because I need a quarterback. I need somebody out of this. I'm going to go take him at the 205 because I believe that, he could be the next Jalen Hurts. Like, there's going to be a lot of discipline that's going to be needed to push that down the board, or to really get creative and try to find one.
Yeah, for me, I mean, the quarterbacks, because I love the any quarterbacks on a 2 deep. I mean, Ewers, Howard, McCord, all those guys are guys that, in the 4th, the 5th waivers, I'm willing just to take them, because the odds that they just survive as a backup quarterback, if not, there's going to be one of them that ends up like, wow, that guy started 10 games in his first 2 years. Where did that come from? Mitch, takeaways from you. This was fun.
There is such a big tier after, like, in the rookie draft, 205, 206. You could put 10 of these guys in a bucket and just start drawing out names at these point. What's the difference between Mason Taylor, Higgins, Harvey, Smith, Marks? I mean, it's just who we like at this point. You know what I mean? But there's such a big tier. But the second we get landing spots, everybody will be like, see, I told you this is where they should be. Like, well, we were kind of all drafting out that bucket, to be honest.
Yeah, we drafted 18 rookie running backs. We drafted only, 7, 8, 10 rookie receivers. And then the quarterbacks, I mean, again, only Milroe, Shuck. That's it. Those are the only non-potential to have round 1 draft capital, early round 2. I mean, really, it's just Milroe and Shuck. Those are the only 2 quarterbacks we took. So I think it was fun. I'll just recap real quick for the audio listeners. It went Genty, Cam Ward, Amarian Hampton, Quinshawn Judkins, Tet McMillan, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Shador Sanders, Matthew Golden, Travis Hunter, Colston Loveland, Jackson Dart. So no vets in the first. Tyler Warren at 201. People are probably going to freak out in the comments. Oh my God, you guys let Tyler Warren go to the second? What are we doing? Devontae Adams and Justin Fields went at 202 and 203. So, late first, early second, probably what it takes to trade those guys or trade for those guys. And then Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, DK Metcalf went at the 206. Sam Darnold, 207. Scattaboo, Jaden Higgins, Geno Smith at the 210. Trey Harris, and then Najee Harris at the 212. Dylan Sampson, RJ Harvey, Evan Ingram, Bashal Tootin, Devin Neal, DJ Giddens, Ollie Gordon, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Milroe, Damian Martinez, Mason Taylor, Alec Iamaner, and then round 4, which is really mostly the mix of round 3 and early round 4. Daniel Jones, 401, Brashard Smith, Christian Kirk, Jalen Knoll, Woody Marks, Taj Brooks, Trevor Etienne, Tyler Shuck, Jalen Royals, Elijah Arroyo, Raheem Sanders, and Javonte Williams. Lots going to change, guys, but this was fun going through this exercise, kind of getting a pulse on some of the veterans that change hands in free agency. Obviously, this hopefully can help people with valuing other veterans that maybe didn't get moved. Like, think about your roster construction. Think about, do I need to trade for a guy like Najee Harris? You don't. You're not trading for him for his future value to explode. You probably have a very specific reason that you would trade for him, or a very specific reason that you would trade for a guy like Daniel Jones. So hopefully this was a good exercise. As always, like and subscribe, support all the other creators on the channel. Hit us up in the comments, flame us for these picks. I'm sure all of us made some ones you're going to disagree with. But with that, until the next mock, we're out. Thanks.